use. And that's it for the system items. Alright, going back to advanced. You can actually control the thickness and how much smoke it actually puts out. So by selecting smoke volume, you can have it anywhere between minimum, medium, and maximum. Ditch light control. This is going to be both for diesel and steam locomotive control. Ditch lights, obvious on a diesel locomotive, you will sometimes have ditch lights. You can actually control their function to be on auto, and in some cases, depending on the prototype of the diesel, when you blow the whistle, the ditch lights may alternately blink on and off. Sometimes you may not want that. You may prefer to have it on constant, which you can select that there, or you can have it be for flash. Now, on a steam locomotive, the ditch light circuits are used for the firebox lights, so this also has a control function for those, except auto in this case is what you actually end up with an actual flicker on the firebox lights. So, but you can again turn them on, off, or flicker with this. Maximum speed. This allows you to set the maximum speed of an engine. So if you're at a train show, or if you've got children that are wanting to play with the trains and you don't want it to go very fast, you can set the top speed of the engine down to a speed where you're comfortable that the engine's not going to fly off the track or they're going to do some sort of a damage. Acceleration rate. This is basically a electronic momentum. This is how many scale mile per hour per second the engine will change speed. So if you had it set at 1 scale mile per hour per second, that is how quickly it will accelerate. So if you quickly accelerate, it accelerates relatively slowly. Deceleration rate, basically the same thing. This allows you to have either a quicker deceleration, or a slower deceleration, depending if you need to stop the engine quickly. If you hit the direction button, if you have the deceleration rate set too low, while it is probably more prototypical, if you have a derailment or something, you need to stop the engine fast. It could be an issue if you have it set too low. So. And I need to correct that, by the way, on the acceleration rate. That I generally keep the acceleration rate probably around 4. If I'm doing testing, I may have it around 7. Direction control, we talked about that before. You can set the engine direction to be locked in forward, reverse, or allow it to go back and forth. Labored smoke. This is a feature that, if activated, that whenever the engine goes into labor chuff, will actually put out thicker smoke. The brake boost allows you to, when you're using these features down here, you have the brake and the boost button. If you use the boost button, it will accelerate the engine, or if you use the brake button, it will slow it down. Now, depending on how you have this menu feature set, if it's set to stay, if you accelerate the engine with this button, it will stay at the speed that you just set it at. If it's set to return, the engine will actually go back down to the speed that it was set previously. Okay, and that's it for the control items. Next is system. This is engine setup for the first one. With this, you can add an engine. Edit an engine means you can edit its engine address or its name. So say, for instance, you wanted the engine to be assigned to item 5. You can change its address. You can also change its name through there. And you can also delete an engine from the remote if you need to. Recover an engine is really more for more of a diagnostics troubleshooting issue, that perhaps if you have a problem with an engine that seems to have disappeared off the remote, but you have trouble adding it back, you can use recover engine to get the engine back. I personally have never seen this ever occur, but obviously this is something that's happened for them to add this. Okay, next is track setup, and this is a feature that I personally don't use, but you can basically add, edit, and delete tracks. Switch setup, this basically allows you to add, edit, and delete switches. Accessory setup, same thing. Remote setup, this allows you to edit the remote's address. And what this does for you is that if you're running more than one remote, you can set each remote to have a different address, and it basically allows you to have up to a total of 15 different remote addresses. Actually, remotes can all operate on the same address. It's really not too big a deal, but if you do have two people that are trying to issue a command at the same time, you may experience a slight delay if you have two remotes that are in the same ID. So kind of having, if you're going to run more than one remote and you're going to have more than one person operating, best to set them to unique numbers. Okay, so going back. Next, you can reset remote, which this here, if you reset the remote, it basically sets the remote back to a default configuration. It will wipe out all the engines in the remote, and also set all of its configurations back to default. The remote address, the TIU address that's stored in the engine, it sets all that back to default. Remote messages. When we were sending commands to the engine before, you could see that it was displaying our message on the screen. It's great for telling you what's going on, but it also can provide a little bit of a delay as far as being able to issue commands quickly. I typically like to keep the message display off. Remote power down. This is a feature that allows you to control how long the remote stays powered on. In other words, you can have the remote auto power off after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even an hour. Remote backup. This basically allows you to back up the remote when you have it connected to the TIU via a wire and you're working with a computer. Allows you to transfer basically a copy of the remote information to the computer and back to the remote if you wanted to. So say for instance you have 100 engines and you've gone through and you've added them all into the remote, and you want to make a backup copy in case the remote fails or you lose it or somebody steals it or something. You can actually go in and like I said, with the application that MTH provides, which is the DCS Loader program, you can actually transfer the information from the remote and all the settings and all the feature settings to the PC and store it in the file. And then if you have a brand new remote and you want to copy all this over to a duplicate remote, you can copy it over using that feature there. Operating mode, you can have it set to normal or speed. What this basically does is if you set in normal mode, the remote is looking for, whenever you issue a command to an engine, the remote is actually looking for a response back from it. If it does not get a response back, it basically is an indicator to you that there's some sort of a communication problem going on, and you will generally get you may get a check track signal on the remote. This can kind of slow down the operation of the remote, just because it's needing to display the message. I personally prefer to leave it on speed, which means basically the remote is not looking for a return message back from the engine. So if for some reason it has a brief moment where it's not getting control, you don't get any kind of message, and it speeds up the operation of the remote. That is a setting I generally recommend for everybody to run, is in speed. Quick set speed. This basically allows you to set the quick set, to set the speed on the remote by depressing the thumb wheel. So if we were back at the engine menu here, if we had quick set on, you could depress the button and then adjust the speed you wanted it to go, and then depress the button again, and then the engine would then start up from 0 to the speed you just selected. I generally prefer not to have quick set activated. That's not something I use. Two additional items under the system menu. Is the TIU setup. Here we have edit TIU address, add TIU, delete TIU, super TIU, reset TIU, and TIU version. To start with the first, the edit the TIU address, what this allows you to do is to go in and actually change the actual TIU address of a particular TIU. For more information on changing TIU addresses, I would recommend that you read the DCS tips section on my website. When you buy a brand new TIU and remote, the remote comes with a TIU number 1 listed. In fact, if you do a full reset on the remote, it goes back to a factory default of having TIU 1 there. Same thing with the TIU. If you do a reset on the TIU address, regardless to what it was set to before, is set back to TIU number 1. You can have a total of 5 TIUs entered in here. In fact, that's something that I can do right here. I can add one real quick, assuming that I have a second TIU added. And here now that the remote is now programmed to communicate to a TIU with address 1 and a TIU with address 2. In this case, there is no TIU address 2 here, so I will go back and remove it. And that is what the add and deletes are to allow you to edit your TIU addresses. And basically, what that message is saying is that if you've added any engines to the remote that were listed under TIU address 2, that's saying that they will be deleted. Okay, super TIU. Here, this is an interesting item. Okay, what this item allows you to do is to run with more than one TIU with the same address number. Generally speaking, you can only have a total of 5 TIUs with unique numbers, and that ranges from 1 through 5. However, there may be circumstances where you need to run more than 5 TIUs, or you may want to run them all with the same TIU address because of a particular reason. If that is the case, then what you can do is you can go ahead and then set each of your TIUs that you have that you want to run in what they call super mode. You can then run them, set them to the same address, and then go through all of your remotes and then also set them to super mode. And again, I would recommend that folks go to my DCS tips page for more information, because I'm trying to give just a very high-level overview of that operation. So, reset TIU. This essentially takes and resets the TIU to a factory state. Going to be very few circumstances that you're ever going to need to do this. It's really mainly for trouble or diagnostic troubleshooting type situation. Okay, and finally is TIU version. This essentially goes in and does a read for the TIU and tells you what software version the TIU is running at. You are going to want to make sure that when you're using your DCS system with the TIU and remote, you'll want to make sure that both the remote and the TIU are using the same software versions. If you have the remote running, or the remote of the TIU running different versions, it will result in a whole host of operating issues of constant check tracks, can't find engines, and all these other things. So it's critical that you run with the same version. And that's it for the system items.